Hello, world. Welcome to another Funhaus episode where we talk about movies. I'm joined by a bunch of dudes and a woman. How are you all doing?
Hello.
Hey.
Today's special guest, Elyse Willems. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey.
I'm going to need to expense that Uber. I know James and I
We can't afford that.
carpool. We
We cannot
carpool
afford
usually,
that.
but I'm
You
still
don't.
going to have to expense the Uber.
You got the
Sorry.
seeds, right?
Sunflower seeds?
Yeah, you eat the seeds.
All right.
I know you brought those from home, but that's pretty much okay. So this is a very special episode. As you remember, a couple weeks ago, we were going to talk about Ghost in the Shell and all the whitewashing going on.
What?
And we're like,
So-
whoa, we don't have an easy out.
But we ended up talking about Logan. Before we get into all that stuff, I do want to remind you this episode is brought to you by Mack Weldon, our fine sponsor. We'll get into them later. But I also want to introduce our second guest, Rahul Kohli, from, what were you in? Life of Pi?
Yeah, it's supposed to be introducing
Yeah,
us.
that one.
Okay.
Lion.
Don't try to
Yeah.
expense your Uber. They won't let you.
Yeah, no. You can't take that out of our budget. Sorry, man.
I tried.
Since we're going to be talking about race in the film industry, I thought Bruce would offer a really good perspective.
I am Native American.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep,
True.
it's
Hence why Bruce is on this episode.
every day.
Just wanted to get that one out there. So,
Yeah.
let's run down just real quick. So another thing too, we obviously recorded this a little early. The movie will be out by now, and people will have seen it. There was a preview that went out a few weeks ago, and people already saw the first 20 minutes of the film. There was, I'll just read some of the headlines here. People say Scarlett Johansson was most likely miscast, and she is a dull actress.
Really?
There's generic
Dull?
music. These are bullet points from
She's
other
not good at playing a robot.
from YouTube reviews.
Too dull.
They are not using, at least in the first 20 minutes, they weren't using any of the original Ghost in the Shell soundtrack
Oh my god.
from the anime. And it
So,
is-
so someone noticed that they should not be allowed to review the film.
hold on.
I would agree.
And it is, quote, a play-by-numbers action film. So that's the early reviews. Obviously, the movie's out now, so we will probably see it and talk about it later. But there's that. That's a fun thing. There's even this thing the Rap.com did a feature on. There's a Twitter meme maker, basically.
Yeah,
that the Ghost in the Shell creators
like
allowed.
I am, or
Where you're like,
whatever.
I am the major, but you can upload any image that you want. So there was a lot of fun, like, hey, Hollywood's being whitewashed. Speaking of whitewashing Hollywood, how you doing, Raul?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, hey.
Stop whitewashing our Hollywood.
Yeah, I know. Raul takes all my roles.
I get this is a problem that a political issue that has been brought up in this entertainment industry. This isn't the first time, but it's been talked about a lot of times. Some movies as of late. In Doctor Strange, Tilda Swinton was cast as the Ancient One.
Which was supposed to be Asian
Correct.
in the comic book, I believe, right? The ancient one was Asian.
Yes, and then same with Scarlett Johansson being cast as the Major in Ghost in the Shell.
Yep.
We'll get to that later because James sent me an interesting article about that. And then lastly, Iron Fist, Finn Jones being cast as Daniel Rand, the latest of the Iron Fist. People were upset that he was
British.
no
As opposed to American.
That he was. Well, the thing is, he's the character's Caucasian in the comic
Yeah.
book.
correct.
But I think, I mean, from the little I read, people were irked that like you couldn't have, maybe this one you could have like bent the race on it. You didn't have
Yeah.
to necessarily stick to it
I see.
because
Yeah.
it adopts so much Asian culture and stuff
Got it.
like that. Could you not?
Got
Do you
it.
have to play by the rules this time?
The,
Do you have
the,
to stick
the
to
Netflix
that?
Marvel series have been getting a lot of pats on the virtual back for their inclusion of minorities with like Luke Cage or females and Jessica Jones, who mostly just gets told what to do by another guy. I didn't think he was that progressive. That's just me. Hey, so I guess people were a little disappointed that for Iron Fist they cast a white male to play a character that could have potentially been Asian to be more inclusive
Or anything. For that.
But from what I understand, the show sucks, so it doesn't really matter.
Ooh.
That's what I've heard. I haven't watched it
Still
yet.
matters. He got paid.
Sure.
It's on his resume.
I thought he was good in Game of Thrones, so I'm just happy to see people get work. I was going to ask, though, our guest, Elyse,
No
and Raul, you're a person of...
The
Color?
Asian persuasion.
You're a person of... No, I was going to say person of acting.
Yeah.
Oh,
In your career, have you ever found it... I don't know, you got a leg up or a leg down based on your heritage?
Initially, I mean, I when I first started, it was I was only ever being called up to play my ethnicity. So it was very specific roles. Either it would be on stage, or it would stage actually broke the rules a little bit more. But with TV and film, it was definitely, and it was the same kind of roles. It was terrorists. It was the usual one I always read was, and they always thought they were groundbreaking when they pitched it. So there's this guy and he's Indian, but like his parents want him to have an arranged marriage. But he's already got a white girlfriend.
They've done that 100 times.
Yeah, and it was that
my
for like
God.
it was that like
I love it.
every
True
couple of
bodyguard.
weeks.
I'd love to watch that movie right now.
So it was at first I dealt with pigeonholing, and now it's been interesting. Like with iZombie, that role, as far as I know, the role that I play on the show was always intended to be played by an Indian actor. And there's been a bit more of a push. So the push has been for a more diverse cast in TV and film. I even heard recently that this pilot season that went by, it was quite an aggressive push. People found it very difficult if they were white to book a role. Like, there was a real hard push for it. So it is, in that way, there has been change, and they're trying to move towards something. The Scarlett Johansson one's one thing, but the Iron Fist kind of did bother me a little bit. I'm a little bit mixed on that one, because I get the sentiment, I get colorblind casting, and I guess that's what everyone wants. That's the pinnacle of it, is where we're not beholden to anything, where anyone, any race, any gender, whatever. It's just not the right. To me, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here before that we even do that. Like, the real issue is simply about films like at this point it's about representation, and shows some shows are lazy, and they don't have a diverse cast. They don't have enough representation in their shows. There's a need, for me personally, when I see storytelling, the protagonists are usually white. It's just the way it is, and that's where we need to that's where the change that I wanted to see, like original stories, things that are written with an idea to cast ethnic minorities in it, and to have that I don't want to take a role from someone else, and do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, that's where my problem is. My problem is that it starts with the writing. It starts with, okay, cool, well, we have this cop, he's a white guy, and we straight away we start with that, and it, you know what I mean, and then the characters around that's where we're at the moment, is we're having diversity, but it's usually to surround
the ensemble.
So it's less about the fact that, hey, that could have been a role that went to an Asian actor that it isn't, and more about the fact that why not starting from the top? We just think multiculturally. And
Bond has always come up for me. Bond is one of the biggest kind of things, because Idris Elba, for instance, people are saying, well, why can't Bond be black?
Sure.
Or any ethnicity. The character's British.
You already have a layer there.
Yeah.
He has to be British. It's
usually.
But does he have to be British? Captain America is played by a Canadian.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Pierce Brosnan's Irish.
Iceman.
That's not necessarily the UK. That's Ireland. Pierce Brosnan and
true.
George Lazenby was Australian. He was the second Bond. So I mean, it's been done, but it's a really interesting one, because like even I myself, like with very the little work I've done, I've been in conversations by certain publications and stuff that have suggested me to be Bond, and other actors like that. And to be honest, that doesn't interest me. It was never about taking a character and flipping it on its head and doing that.
Sure,
Like,
this is gonna
it's
be really
like that
funny.
doesn't solve anything.
It's gonna be really funny when we watch this back.
And he's Bond.
And he's been playing Bond for 2 decades.
Yeah, I know.
And I cringe when I
You're
watch the
gonna feel
podcast.
real embarrassed,
Yeah.
Raul.
Man, egg on your face.
But and it's very personal to each actor. I know other actors who do want that kind of role. Who go, no, it's time we should have that.
Sure.
I don't believe that. I rather just start at the beginning. I'd start at the source. I don't want Bond. Write a new character. Write who's the next Jason Bourne story, where it was something original, that isn't necessarily written with those same archetypes. Like that's what I want.
How did you feel about a black actress playing Hermione in the stage production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child? Because then a lot of people were kind of up in arms about that, saying Hermione's not black, she's not black. And then I really liked J.K. Rowling's response, which was, I never told you.
I never specified.
What race.
Yeah,
it was it was ambiguous what race. Kind of anybody. I mean, we know Ron is a family of redheads.
She only described her hair, right?
No,
yeah.
apparently
she has bushy hair.
There was one that the counter argument to that was
her pubic hair. Yeah.
You once said she blushed or she turned red, and you can only be Caucasian I remember seeing something like that.
I have Filipino friends who turn red when they drink alcohol. That always happens.
But I genuinely liked that response from her, which was, I never told you. I never implied. Or I mean, some people are going to read into whatever, but I like that.
There also seems to be the interesting thing with that is there also seems to be a hierarchy with where you can bend the rules. I feel like stage and theatre has always where we've always had to where men and women have swapped genders for roles and had to fill out, like you'll have smaller casts having to tell a play. You can't necessarily have that many actors. The Shakespeare always opens up. They ask you to suspend your disbelief. We're a humble production.
Well, they're like welcome to Rome, right? Yeah. And it's like 2 boxes and a small potted plant.
Right. Exactly. So I think that's why for me, stage isn't really applicable. But I don't find people as necessarily like I played Henry V. It was small, it was a small production. I didn't get shit smeared on my dressing room door or anything like that. People are like, oh well, whatever. They're not that bothered by it. Had it been a film or TV, all of a sudden the reality scale kicks. Like all of a sudden it has to be super accurate.
Well, it's like the larger the audience, the more people go, wait a minute, And honestly, that makes sense, I guess, from a human race standpoint. The reason they all thought Hermione shouldn't be black is because they'd seen Hermione in a film as white.
Yeah.
Sure,
So it's now it's red.
Reference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's right. And I mean, and it's kind of one of those things where you're bringing a good point, which is I just want to see the character. It doesn't matter what color or whatever they are. Whatever that person wanted in their story as this character, I'm good. Like, it doesn't matter. White, black, female, male, doesn't matter.
There's a weird thing, too, because a lot of stories don't have great characters. Just a lot that's written that is just kind of like, well, we just need someone to hold the gun and shoot the gun and fight the bad guys. It's not like there's a ton of character depth there. And so at that point, it's like we could literally use anyone we wanted to. Anyone or anything. But then often I guess the choice is for it to be a white.
But then you get into the real nitty gritty of it is that, and I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but this is how it has felt and what I think of the industry. But it's money motivated.
Yep.
Simply it's
there's
not about the audience.
There's a chart out there or on a computer that says this actor plus this genre equals this dollar sign. And nowhere on there does it say race, creed, or anything else. It is just a machine.
Yeah, it's weird because there's probably several... Listen, I love him, but there's probably several movies Tom Cruise didn't belong in that someone else would have done a way better job, white or any other race for that matter. But Tom Cruise is in it because they did the math and they figured out how many seats he's going to fill.
Yeah, it's a box office draw.
And so they did it, and it's like that's kind of a weird aspect. Like, you can't deny the fact that it's a business.
In terms of money motivations, I'll say it. I do think that probably there are studios that have research that say people want to watch white actors.
Yeah.
And it's funny. That's a different money motivation than what I was thinking of, because I recently saw a headline that I just breezed through the article, so I'm just regurgitating this and probably poorly. But in terms of all the Doctor Strange situation with Tilda Swinton. I believe her character is a Thai character in the comics, and because of the influx of Chinese money into the production, a lot of people were surmising that they didn't want a Thai character because the Chinese audiences wouldn't like that because of whatever relationship they have. My argument to that would have been, well, couldn't they have made it a Chinese character then to appease that demographic, or would that have opened another can of worms? I don't know. That was just a pure speculative thing that this argument or this article was saying, which I thought was interesting.
Pure speculation as well. I also regurgitating, but I listened to an NPR report that's actually said that in the past 5 years, the most successful films have been diverse films. Films with a diverse multicultural cast have actually been performing better at box offices than ones that are entirely one race or trying to specifically target one race and do that. So I think it's weird.
Getting better.
It could be it could be a business shift that's waiting on the cultural shift to catch up with the business shift kind of thing.
So in theory, because I haven't seen Ghost in the Shell in so long, but in theory, if we were to make that with Japanese, I mean, there really isn't a role really for any Caucasian actors in that. If we were to be completely
well, that's the weird thing, because like there are it's the future and it's Tokyo, but it's anime. So like and the anime does this where it's like, oh, it's about a boys' school in Japan and they love to play basketball and stuff like that. And then there's one that has dark hair. There's one that has blonde hair and blue eyes, but he has the exact same face as the dark hair
It's like
dude.
if you look at Final Fantasy, for instance, which you know, these are made by a Japanese company. These characters don't look particularly ethnic to me.
They look like sex dolls.
They're kind of drawn any sort of way. Now the thing is, I guess when you get into it, what the character's name is Motoko, like what is it, Kusanagi, right? And so like probably not a white dude's name, you know.
I mean, that may not be
but
true. You know?
It goes into the whole thing where it's like it's the future. Maybe cultures have merged. Blade Runner had geishas in like the background.
But it also then ties in, and I think it becomes it's the poster, it's everything, it's the merchandise, it's what you see. It then looks like, you know, it doesn't matter if Scarlett Johansson is the only Caucasian person in that entire film.
Yeah.
I think her partner's white. I forget.
Yeah,
there's the guy with the dot eyes.
Yeah, he is too.
But has there been a Ghost in the Shell live action created in Japan? So this is the first of its kind?
This is the first. This is actually a quote from the director of the original, I believe the 1995 Ghost in the Shell film. Yeah, the animated one. There's a quote from the director himself. It says, the Major is a cyborg and her physical form is entirely an assumed one. The name Motoko Kasunagi, I'm saying that probably wrong, sorry, and her current body are not her original name and body, so there is no basis for saying that an Asian actress must portray her. Even if her original body, presuming such a thing exists, were a Japanese one, that would still apply. He's saying, I believe in having Scarlett play the Major was the best possible casting for this movie. I can only sense a political motive for the people opposing it, and I believe artistic expression must be free from politics.
He's very much in the director should be free to do whatever director wants side of things.
Sure.
He has, I guess, some credence to it because he has directed the property and he did it his way, and I guess he imagined that if someone wants to come in afterwards, they should do it their way. The political thing seems a little like maybe more of a push.
He has a final quote about the director actually saying, if this is to be a remake of the anime, I don't think it's necessary to remain faithful to the way things were expressed in the anime. The director should exercise his directorial freedom as much as possible. If he doesn't do so, there would be no point in remaking it, which I agree with. And I think a lot of people are just going to say, well, then don't remake it. But I'm sure Paramount bought the rights and said, well, we got to do something with this thing.
I just, like, this is going to sound terrible, but I don't know what Asian actress they could put in that leading role and still get the film made.
Everyone says the girl from Pacific Rim.
So that's a terrible answer because no one knows what her name is. They just show a picture of the girl from Pacific Rim, and you know what she's not going to do? She's not going to justify a $200 million budget.
This is why, again, I understand exactly what the director's saying, sure, but I can't help but still go, yeah, but even though if it is sure, do whatever you want with my property, it could be played by any role, we've still reverted back to the same thing. We find ourselves back in the same place where it's like, okay, he said we could have anyone, so we could have had think of a black actress right now,
Viola Davis.
Sure,
yeah,
but it still came right back down to the same issue that we find ourselves in, which is the big name on the poster, the lead there, right there.
It's a business.
Bang.
It's a business.
It's the business because Scarlett Johansson's going to sell.
Right, she's going to sell. Yeah, and that's the like with Lucy and those other movies that she headlined. I mean, and obviously Black Widow and Avengers. That's the same deal. Yeah. Like she's going to make the money for the studio.
I still think that this movie might be too niche for Middle America to think that Scarlett Johansson alone would drag them into theaters seeing this. I think
the consensus is they try to make a movie for everybody, and now it's being made for nobody.
Yeah.
So it most likely, we won't know obviously for a little while, but it's most likely going to do but because they're advertising the shit out of it. But
I thought the same about Lucy, and Lucy made a shit ton of money.
That's true.
So that's why I was so confused about Lucy, because I was like, this is a throwaway action film starring Scarlett. I was like, no one's gonna watch this, and everybody
still got it.
Pacific Rim was successful, right?
Barely. I think
overseas,
it did better overseas.
It was huge. So if they're thinking about their overseas
Maybe
markets,
overseas.
which
That's
more and
true.
more
Well,
studios
yeah.
are, clearly, if that's correct about Doctor Strange, they are. I don't think it would have been wrong to say this actress from Pacific Rim made millions of dollars overseas. She could carry this film. I think she would have been. I think that actress is awesome.
Well, the thing is,
You don't know her
Scarlett
name.
Johansson is still 3 times the box
Well,
office draw she
Scarlett
is.
Johansson too made the 2016 list as Hollywood's most bankable actor.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
she's like, for how much she costs versus how much she brought in.
Oh.
That's also skewed against movies like Civil War and Captain America or whatever.
I think you give the audiences are sometimes way smarter than the studios that make the movies. I don't want to empower audiences to make those movies in place of the studios sometimes, but sometimes they're way smarter. And I think the decisions are, she's on this list. Sounds like a good investment to us. And then someone holds up a picture of Black Widow, and they go, okay, she'll be good as spy.
Yeah.
She'll be good as Robo Spy.
Right.
Like, and that's what a studio executive does. And then they take a stamp that has their signature on it, and they stamp the sheet and go, Robo Spy approved. Like, that's it. That's as far as they can think.
Well, to that point, real quick, Earl.
Yeah, sure.
I believe Robo Spies would need form-fitting underwear.
I would
which
agree.
Brings us to our sponsor. I'd like to let everyone know this episode is brought to you by Mack Weldon, who believes in smart design, premium fabrics, and simple shopping. I've shopped there a few times. Jess has bought me a few things. Super easy. Probably one of the easiest online stores to buy from. Mack Weldon will be the most comfortable underwear, socks, shirts, undershirts, hoodies, and sweatpants that you will ever wear. I don't own all those things, but I can attest to the underwear and the pants for sure. And Bruce, you've had a few. Actually, I have
The shirts are great.
Shirts are really great.
Yeah.
I actually have a polo that fits really well.
Yeah.
They want you to be comfortable, so if you don't like your first pair, you can keep it, and they will still refund you. No questions asked. Great clothes for everyday life. So please go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off on your first order, using the promo code Filmhouse. That's FILMHAUS. Filmhouse.
Now I know.
Thank you, Mack Weldon, for sponsoring this episode. Sorry, Rahul, you were saying.
No, I was just gonna. I think it's always just gonna go back to that original thing where we're getting ahead of ourselves. Like Ghost in the Shell, when you said like, okay, who can we have instead of Scarlett? If we were going to cast an Asian actress, who is there? And it was like, well, someone from Pacific. I'm sure there are actresses right now. I mean, people will write in the YouTube comments or whatever. They'll say, no, you could have had blah 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 blah. But the point is, we can't just leap into those roles. We're unable as ethnic minorities to just leap into, $hundreds of $1 million box office films and expect, like, it's not going to happen. It's going to, like, the whole push for Bond is simply because you have one name on the tip of your tongues, Idris Elba, but no one else. I mean, okay, Chiwetel Ejiofor, I don't hear much people giving it for him because one person's broke through. Now we can have change. It's not the case. It needs to be far more. We need to go a few steps back, and that's my problem. Like Ghost in the Shell right now, I don't have a counter argument for it. I actually don't. Seeing the business side of things, what I do have an argument for is it's allowing us to build those foundations so that in the future, maybe in a few years' time, we have 5 names we can throw in the hat. Then we have a valid argument to say, well, hold on, why did you need Scarlett Johansson when XYZ has been the leads of these movies and they've done well?
And yeah, and they've made
right now
as much money.
there's a block, and I think that every now and again when one ethnic actor sneaks through and we throw them into that thing and it's a box office failure, it just sets us back even further. It needs to kind of, again, it starts at the source. It has to be original stuff. Like when you take a film like John Wick, that didn't necessarily have to be Keanu. I know Keanu's actually
He's really
mixed race.
invested
He's
in-
mixed race as well. He's Hawaiian, but again, these sorts of roles where they weren't necessarily huge box office, there wasn't a lot of money going into those. Didn't necessarily have to be. Maybe he's actually a bad example. I probably shouldn't have said Keanu because he is a person of color to a certain degree. But like it's those other
He's
ones.
also
not
like a
necessarily
bankable action star.
He's a
based
bankable
on
action star, but
Matrix films, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like it's Mad Max, for instance. There you go. I mean, was there a male person of color in that entire film? Was that a point? Was that an issue? I don't know. But
What
there
color was
I
that
mean,
midget?
I don't know.
I don't think there was.
Sorry, dwarf.
I mean, even Max didn't have to
Yeah,
be,
he
could have
been
been
anything.
because it was about Charlize Theron anyway,
Yeah.
and the rest of them. So like, it's those roles. I mean, they don't necessarily have to go there. I get the Ghost in the Shell one. I get it because it's also a property that my parents aren't going to go and rush out to see. It's
Right.
a very niche thing, right?
Do you think in our lifetime we'll see a black Batman?
I was thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have to make the suit white.
Right. Well, I wanted to, because I've always wanted to play Batman, so I was like, well, I can't, because I'd be the only brown face in Gotham.
The beard
That's
would
a
give it away.
billionaire. You see it through here, right? And then that's it. It's a wrap.
Brown face.
It's like, it's him.
Yeah.
He's Batman.
No, again, I don't see. The thing is I don't think we will, and I don't know if we should, because I'd rather again
An original character.
Yeah.
We can do that. I mean, okay, I got a good one. Finally, Star-Lord. When was that written? When was Guardians of the Galaxy out?
The movie?
Like the movie?
No, the
came out
comic book.
Like the
2014.
comic
Oh, I
books
don't
were
know.
like, I think the 80s and early 90s maybe?
Sure.
I don't know. I really don't
But that's
know.
a relatively new property
Yeah, yeah.
compared to the others.
Sure.
Yeah.
Something
Now-
not from the 60s.
Sure, and it's so it's out, it's done. Movie gets made.
Yeah.
and there's a 15-year, maybe 20-year gap between that, but that was an original property where someone nowadays could come up with a comic book that had an ethnic minority already instilled. There you go. You got problems with us not sticking to source material. Let's do it now, and see where we can go in 5 years. Then we don't even have this argument. Then it doesn't matter. Then it doesn't matter what people say of, oh well, should he be black or should he be brown or da 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 da.
That's kind of
And
the Nick Fury thing. Which is really interesting. People
Yeah,
probably
true.
don't. There's a whole generation of people who don't know that Nick Fury used to be a white guy,
Yes,
he did.
played by
Yeah.
David
Hasselhoff, yeah.
in the original movie, which was like, oh, that's actually kind of close to what he looked like.
And that's what Brian Michael Bendis. I think he was the one who was working on Ultimate Avengers.
Oh, it made Nick Fury black.
And then he was like,
Well,
Samuel
Jackson.
L. Jackson would be a great Nick Fury, and
Yeah.
so they just drew Samuel L. Jackson into their comic,
Yeah.
and then he eventually played the role.
I think
I think-
Sam Jackson
was
was
it
like
Bendis?
basically
I don't
said
know.
like, please make me Nick Fury. They said, sure, you got it.
But it did
Whatever you
start earlier. It is interesting because Chris Pratt wasn't cast in Guardians of the Galaxy because he was bankable. He became bankable because Guardians of the Galaxy was a success.
Well, I don't think anybody was banking on Guardians of the Galaxy.
No, I know,
So
but
that was the-
that's
that was
I'm
the
just saying
catch.
that's a good example.
Marvel
That
was.
that would have been a good point where they were confident in the work, not necessarily needing to tentpole it with some sort of performer.
Well-
It was an ensemble around him as
Yeah.
well.
Right.
Yeah, I
To
know.
an extent.
Did Star-Lord have to be white in the film?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Didn't have
I'm
to.
pretty sure though in the studio system they said, let's go with something safe, and safe to them meant Caucasian.
But that's
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why does that mean safe? Right?
Because-
Yeah, and that's where we always come back to that. That's why even the Ghost in the Shell, where I still don't think that I can see both sides of the argument. We still go straight back to that because it is safe and it appeals to that, and
It's a weird thing with something like Ghost in the Shell has a fan base around it, and it has had many different iterations of either comic books or cartoon series, and so that has a fan base. Whereas like Guardians of the Galaxy was just a comic book, so I think you hear more about stuff when it has a fan base behind it. You won't hear a lot of murmurs and stuff. If someone had told me before the movie Guardians of the Galaxy came out and said, "Can you believe that Star-Lord is a Mexican guy?" I'd be like,
Who?
What?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what a Star-Lord is.
Yeah.
You need to explain this to me. But a lot of people know what Ghost in the Shells, or at least they remember it in some way. So I think that's where the main difference is what has an established name already. That's where people are going to get upset or just not care.
Like Suicide Squad when they had what's his face?
Slipknot.
Slipknot?
Yeah, Slipknot. I was gonna say Hookshot.
Yeah. I don't
get out of here.
I don't know if Slipknot was a Native American.
me in your diverse
When I-
cast of characters.
When I think about people seeing gender swapping as like brave or revolutionary, I sort
Marvel
of feel
can't
that
stop
exact
doing it.
same way, that it's safe. It's like, let's take women and give them a role that has recognition because that's safe. Because at least people can bank upon the recognition then. Like Ghostbusters. It wasn't like, let's give women an original property, an original story that we think is like really deserving of these talented performers and we think they can carry a property. It's, to me, it always sort of feels like, well, at least there's the recognition to go by.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like it's funny you say that because I feel like all of Hollywood is recognition now.
Sure.
They're just making brands over and
Yeah.
over
Yeah,
and over.
it's member berries.
that everyone
too.
knows.
That's weird because it's like that kind of pulls the other way. Ghost in the Shell is something that they're like, we're not pretty confident anyone's gonna know or care what this is, but they'll care and know who Scarlett Johansson is, so she's
Well,
attached.
they're not going to make they want to make a Ghost in the Shell
Yeah.
property. They're not going to make it a man. So they have to make it a woman. So why
No,
not find the most bankable woman?
No, yeah,
of
I
all the
agree. I'm
women?
saying,
the
I'm saying,
queen
but
of the women.
Ghostbusters is weird. They're not confident in the fact that a female ensemble action comedy will work, But they're like, but maybe Ghostbusters will. So then they tie the property.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know. We're in a strange
Rahul,
place.
have you, to your recollection in your career, can you think of a time when like you've been in an ensemble where there's been another Indian actor, like,
Wow.
like, or you are the only?
I mean, I don't have.
That's not to trap you or anything. I'm just
I'm
curious.
Native American.
Oh, right.
Native
right,
American.
Right, sorry. I got
Wrong
the
Indian.
wrongs.
No, not really. The thing is, my career is still in its infancy, and
God
we
willing.
know it. We know.
I can't speak for other projects, but so far it hasn't happened, and I've been in situations already in castings where my role is like where they like you, but if they go ethnic with the other role, then they'll go white with your role, so you won't have your role anymore because we have a quota.
Right.
So I keep hitting. I've heard about the quotas, so it's like, well, that we've designated out of the 4, we've designated one of those roles to an ethnic minority, depending where you know what I mean. So it's we can only have 1 out of 4.
Mix and match, yeah.
So our show was quite funny because me and Malcolm are, it's we were originally season regular 5 of us. 2 of us were people of color, and then the other and then we had a girl, and then 2 white males, which was kind of actually a little bit more diverse than most shows, even in that. But no one really knew about that because it's not on the poster or anything. But I'm not saying there's anything insidious about that. But Liv Rose is the face of the show,
Sure,
and there's
yeah.
the zombie. But
She puts the butts in the
Well,
seats.
she puts the butts in the
and
seats.
you keep them there.
But yeah, it's there's usually a quota. You can't have too many at one time.
It is a weird thing where the brain does that, and I mean, ideally in a perfect world that will all go away. It's just, it would be funny, like right now, if like Suicide Squad or something, or Justice League, and it was like the entire cast was just black, and no one said anything. They're like, "Go, those are all the right actors for that role," and no one once said, "But what about race?" And like,
Sure, yeah.
that's the perfect world we're all wishing for. But there's something that goes off in everyone's head where we go, "Oh, they're all just one color." And you're like,
Well,
yeah,
there are lots of movies like that, though. I mean, like,
but I feel like those movies go out of their way to do that. They're not just casting the best person for the job. They're casting like they're trying to get a rainbow going or something like that. Or they're saying like, this is going to be a Tyler Perry movie, so everyone has to be black because we're making this for a black audience. That tends to be what those movies are.
well, I mean, that's I guess it's where we come back to it's a business. So they're making
Absolutely.
things for certain audiences. So it may not always be like, well, it has to be, one white, it has to be one black, it has to be, etc. It may just be, well, we're making it for this audience, so let's cast these people because this is the audience. The audience will get these people the most.
See, I've heard an interesting argument, and that's there's almost an unfair thing put on Western cinema that necessarily other countries aren't beholden to, and that's that they have a what's the word I'm looking for? An expectation. They have a responsibility is the word I'm looking for. Responsibility to represent a diverse community that Bollywood,
Oh yeah.
Asian cinema,
Not
no
beholden
one
to
else,
that at all.
Yeah,
no
that's
one is
true.
beholden to that.
Have you seen a little movie called
Oh.
The Great Wall, starring Matt Damon and Willem Dafoe?
I didn't see it.
No,
but I
no
saw
one
the
saw
picture.
it.
I don't know
That's kind of
much
a
about
story
the
there.
demographics of those nations, but I'd be curious to see how that compares.
Well, they aren't. I mean, I can be speculative right now. I know for a fact that India isn't as diverse as America is.
Yeah.
yeah.
So is it a responsibility? It's like, well, we are a nation of immigrants. That's what America is. It's built on, it is a Western society celebrates diverse culture, so therefore there's a responsibility that their film should also celebrate
Which makes sense.
diversity.
Yeah.
Because I've heard, like, even when I've been on things where people go, Bollywood doesn't have to have any white people, or all right, yeah, but it's all Indian anyway.
Well,
And no one came to the
people-
and you have to speak Hindi as
well.
well.
Most of the people
you know what I
watching
mean?
those movies are
Yeah.
Indian,
Right.
except
Yeah.
for like 13-year-old little Elyse. But exception to the rule.
But what I found interesting was China, and that was the need. Like, now that the Chinese market is open to Western cinema, that there is a pandering to their tastes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that deeply offended me was that John Boyega was photoshopped out of this Chinese poster,
Yeah, which blew my mind.
entirely removed from the one sheet.
They don't like
and
them.
and that's an interesting thing when you know that Hollywood is trying to open up to that market, and immediately the one black actor they have on that film is photoshopped off the poster. You already know, like, that's them not being subtle about it.
Absolutely.
So what are they doing behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean by that? Like,
No, you're right.
that's what I'm curious about. Like, if we are trying to make content and sell it to that market, what's happening behind the scenes where with other ethnic minority roles, knowing that that's how they feel.
Yeah.
The Death Note Netflix trailer came out today for their adaptation, and a lot of people are upset too because it's like it's not an Asian cast at all.
Isn't there already a Japanese Death Note?
There's a
movie?
live action Japanese Death Note adaptation already, so I was kind of like, well, it's not really this is a whole different thing. It's not. That's why I asked if Ghost in the Shell had been adapted already for live action.
It's weird too, because like, I mean, if you just want to break it down in terms of accuracy, in Death Note the anime, the main character is a blonde, like almost auburn-haired guy. I don't know, like it's like I don't know what ethnicity he's supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird,
but I hope it's good.
I feel like the strictness as well changes the parameters of how strict someone is to or faithful to someone's ethnicity is funny, because I remember Aladdin. This was just coming up now about they want Middle Eastern actors for Aladdin, and so when I was when fans were like, "Oh, Rahul, you should totally audition for Aladdin," which was ridiculous, but
you should.
They were like, but then a lot of people I saw in the chat were like, he can't. He's Indian. He can't play Middle Eastern. I was like, oh, we're getting that fucking specific now. So when it comes to me, we have to completely, like you said with the Doctor Strange. Well, she's Thai, but we can't make her Asian. Yeah. So we'll keep her. So like unless you can get exactly what it is. It can just be white.
The template for the animated Aladdin was Tom Cruise. They drew him to look like Tom Cruise. So who the fuck
most
does it
famous
matter?
Middle Eastern.
The Last Samurai himself.
He's Ken Watanabe.
And funnily enough, Aladdin is actually a Chinese story that was then adapted by Disney to become an Arabic story. Wow. So it was originally a Chinese story. So I mean,
so you should go full Chinese, like Mickey Rooney, with it, and just show up to the audition and offend somebody.
I've considered myself a transformative actor, so I can play anything.
You can play Chinese, Mexican, doesn't matter.
Mexican,
That's
Irish.
cool.
Irish, that's good.
Turkish is one of my big ones.
Like the guy from Short Circuit.
Big in Turkey, they call me.
The guy from Short Circuit. Yeah, I didn't know that until I saw Master of None, or I heard that as he said he's a white actor.
Well, because you watched it and you're like...
Because I was like, I wanted to be like, he's the reason I got into the industry.
I
He made it. I wanted to be
I thought you were on Master of None.
Oh, I left after the last time I was here.
Always good to go out on a high note. I'd like to thank all my guests for being on the show this week.
No problem, Bob.
It's not my name. Never has been. Roll, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
You're such a gentleman. Thank you so much for stopping by. What's the show you're on? What do you do there?
I should do it for real.
You should do it for real. I would like you to. I want you to plug your stuff.
Fine.
Lion.
I did
Mindy Project.
You're in Minions?
That's a Mindy Project.
I know. I heard you. Sorry. Go ahead.
iZombie.
Yes.
It's a zombie show. It's good. It's
good
not
show.
as good as Riverdale.
Where
is it, Elyse?
Yeah, I'm a big Riverdale fan. What can I say?
We don't bring that shit in here. Where can people check out iZombie?
On the CW.
There it is.
But we probably would have started by the time this airs.
Oh no, you're gone. Goodbye.
Hello
April
from the
4th is our
future.
premiere.
Yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
Wow.
April 4th, yeah.
So this will air right before the premiere?
Just in time
Oh,
for
so you
my
can watch it
I
April 4th.
didn't
yeah.
know if you wanted to talk about the Netflix thing. Is that a big
Which
deal?
will also be available on Netflix.
There it is.
Season 3, after the show's finished in the US, it will come out within a week or two, the whole season. And in the UK and Australia, it will come out the next day.
Yeah.
Fun fact about Raul is he will sign any copy of iZombie you give him. Sometimes he'll give you some too,
Yeah.
even if you already have them.
Yep.
It's
Sewn into his clothes.
yeah.
The same goes for us though. We also
We'll also
sign
sign
any
on
iZombie
iZombie.
merch
So if you
that's
put it in
sent
front
to
of us,
us.
we'll
We'll
sign it.
it.
Yeah.
So that's no problem.
So please, we'll sign all your iZombie merch. See you at RTX. All right, thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
There's a part where there's a lot of mutants waiting in line to get a shot to get their mutant powers taken away. They're being protected by guys with guns that will shoot other mutants, but those guns make the mutant powers go away. So why don't they just get shot if they're waiting in line?
I think it's like a
Stupid.
That's a really good point. Actually,
Just act up and then get shot.
you're thinking way
And
too
move
much.
on your way.
You're
No, I
thinking
mean,